Hi guys, Gilly Hunt here with the second of my Darling Donkey cards. Yesterday I made or showed you three, and I made one of the partying donkeys. That was this lovely chap who's sort of dancing away with a "It's your birthday" message. I'll show you it again, then you could go back and have a look how to make it if you want. But I did notice, here we go, that I forgot to do one thing. I was going to put some strings on to make them into balloons. So it's up to you, but that's another idea, is to use a little piece of the linen thread and to put those in to make your balloons. So go back, if you want to know how to make those, go back to yesterday and look those up. That'll be Darling Donkey's birthday cards. Okay, so now we've got Darling Donkeys, and we're going to have a go to baby card, because I think this is the cutest little baby card you can imagine. Hey there, friend. Just arrived? Well, you're my new friend, okay? I thought that was rather lovely. So let's have a go today. I'll show you how to make this, but I'm going to make this having done one with Pool Party as my background. I've got one for the next little boy that comes into our lives. So I thought next I would have a go at making one with Blushing Bride. So we've got a pink one for the next little girl that comes into our lives. And of course, if you want to make one up front and you're not sure, well, you can always go for a nice daffodil yellow or something pale green maybe. Those are always lovely colours to use. And we don't have to be conventional. We can always have pink for a boy and blue for a girl. Okay, so here goes. This is what you're going to need. You're going to need a piece of card, Whisper White, 5 by 7, scored down the middle and folded to make a 5 by 3.5 inch card. Then you're going to need a piece of Whisper White. It's just a layer, and I don't know whether you spotted it, but it's quite subtle. It's just a little layer at the back here. Okay, and it just raises everything up a little bit. And there it is. I've just noticed my fingers, I'm sorry, that they're really sort of peeling. It's not actually peeling, it's glue. I dropped a bit of glue earlier and I've just realised that it's starting to dry, obviously. So here we go. This is the background, and this is just white, Whisper White card, and it just gives you that little extra layer. So the first thing we're going to do is this Whisper White layer, which is 4 inches by 2.5 inches. We're going to stick this one down. And I'm just going to use the wet glue, but again I could use tape, I could use any other means that you wanted. And I'm going to stick that as central to the other card. And we're going to work in landscape on this, so let me just make sure I'm nice and squared up. There we go. And the next thing we're going to do is take the piece of coloured. So this is Blushing Bride, and I'm going to texture it using an embossing folder. We used one yesterday, so if you're not sure how to do this or what to do with this, you just put it inside the textured folder. You bring in your little mini or your big one, if you have a big one. I'm lucky enough to have managed to get both. But I'm using the mini because you can see it. So I then put it in with the hinge side first, and I just push it in and roll it round. Okay, and as I roll it, it pops out the other end. Let's grab hold of it. Oops, excuse me, knocking all the camera stand about. And out of here we now have a lovely textured piece of cardstock, and it makes such a difference having that little bit of texture. It somehow makes your card look so much more professional. Obviously, if you don't have the equipment yet, I would encourage you to buy it. Of course I would. And I'd encourage you to come to gillyhunt.com to get it. But if you don't have it, you can always leave this plain. Or you could even use a piece of designer paper which has a pattern on. But isn't that just nice and subtle with the texture? So there's the basics. Now we're going to need a little text bar, which is going to want to be 4.5 inches long, so it will lip over the edge. but I'm not going to cut the width yet because I want to get this to go with the text. So I'm now going to use my text, and I've chosen to use the Hey There Friend, which is from the same Darling Donkey set. Okay. And I've put it on the wrong end. So the great thing with making a mistake is you can always turn it over. There's a second side for a second go. Here we go. Let's try again. Yes, I'm at the right end this time. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my little cutter. I'm going to make sure that I cut this nice. I don't really want to cut a lot off. Let's just cut to there. And the advantage of cutting it after rather than before you've put your text on is that I can now manipulate this and get the text nicely in the centre where I want it to be by cutting it and slicing it. So I can now space that. It would be quite hard to get it just accurate otherwise. So there we go. And this is going to go across, and I've got to make sure I get the right one because I've now got it on both sides. That would have been at this end, and I don't want him at this end, I want him at that end. So make sure you get it right, Jill. So you're not going to make that first mistake, so you won't have any problem. You'll have nothing on the back and only text on the front. There we go. Hey there, friend. And I'm wanting just a little bit of pink underneath and a little piece of pink above, so I want it about there. Because it kind of, the idea of this is it gives the donkey something to sit on. If you look at the donkey, if he's sitting floating in the air, it doesn't quite look right, whereas he sits on this little firm piece here, and just this edge, it kind of weights him down. So let's try him. And we're going to use the Memento ink for the same reasons I said yesterday, if those of you that watched yesterday's video, is that we want to use a dye-based ink because we're going to use some Stampin' Blends to colour him in. And we don't want the Stampin' Blends, which are alcohol-based, to pick up or smudge the black lines that we're making here. So we don't want these black lines to move. And because it's alcohol and this is dye-based, then they won't move one from the other. Okay, so there he goes. We're going to also find two little hearts, and those are going to be white as well because this is for a baby, and I think it's quite nice to have a bit of whitey creamy sort of baby. I'm a bit of a traditional baby person, so I want something nice and white, and I've used a punch this time. Now last time I used the heart die, and you'll find that in the catalogue there are lots of dies that you can use with different sizes and different shapes of hearts. So this is actually an old punch, I'm afraid, but I do like it. And it's one of the great things with Stampin' Up is everything kind of goes together, and when you buy something one year, you can guarantee that the next year the size and the shape of it will also go still with the wording of the other things that you've got. It'll be in proportion and it'll work well. So you never have to throw things away. You can always add them to your collection, which is a great bonus. So let's get colouring next. So let's find a piece of old scrap paper. Here we go. Oops. And let's put that underneath the card because this will soak through. Okay, because we're using alcohol markers. Now, yesterday I made us quite a pinky pale brown donkey. So I thought I might try a different one today. So I'm going to use light smoky slate, dark smoky slate. I'm still going to use the two colours that I had yesterday, which were light petal pink and dark petal pink. Okay, and I might bring in a tiny bit of dark crumb cake. Okay, so I'm going to just use a slightly different palette, and a slightly different palette from the one I used before. so that we can get an idea of kind of how we can work with the colours you've got. So here we go. First and foremost, as yesterday, I want you to imagine a spotlight shining on this lovely little chap. Now, which of the pieces that are going to stick out? Well, this big fat haunch here is going to stick out, because that's going to be the first thing that's going to, the light's going to hit. He's going to be his big fat bottom. His face is going to sort of stand out, and his little nose is going to stand out. So what I'm doing is I am making a little circle and a little circle and a little circle around where the light will fall, so that we can keep the paper white there. And I'm using the lightest colour I have, which is the light petal pink. Now I'm going to take the next depth of colour, which is the dark petal pink, and I'm going to just fill in around him. So his bottom and all of his little hooves, and okay, and this gives the whole drawing and colouring a kind of tone, a tonal similarity. We're almost just putting in the shadows and the shade, okay? Now, did you notice that as I was going round, not only did I leave the white part, but I also left, let me see if I can get it really up close, I've also left a little area around the outside, which is that light petal pink. Now I need to blend that together, so I'm going to go back in with the light petal pink, and I'm just going to go across the edge and blur it like this. And you might think, oh no, that's all just merging into nothing, but when it dries, it will still be the two colours, but the colours will be merged together. Okay, so can you see? I've still got those little white accents left white. Okay, now I'm also going to use the light petal pink on the inside of his ears, which I should have done the first time round, but I forgot, because I want his little ears to be pink. Now I'm going to make him into a little grey donkey. Okay, so I'm going to use the light smoky slate. Yesterday we had a slightly browner donkey, and we used the dark, the browns. So now I'm going to go round the very edges, because this is where the shadows will come. Okay, I'm not going to use very much. So round his bottom, where he's sat down, underneath his belly, just the places where the shadows will fall. Okay, and above his ears, just on the tops of his ears. Okay, and I'm going to get the dark slate, and I'm just going to do even tinier little, tiniest little edge, bottoms of his ears, where it might go into the darkness, the bottom of his tummy, a little bit round his bottom, okay, and this back leg, and this back leg, because they'll be at the back, and you won't sort of see those, okay. And now I'm going to go back with the dark petal pink, and I'm going to just allow them to be blended. Now I'm having to be quite careful not to come into this central piece, because we want to keep this as it is, which is plain and simple. So all I'm doing is just blending the very edge together, the very edges together. Okay, very edges together. Here it goes. And I'm going to put a little bit of dark crumb cake on his tail and on his head, just to give him some detail, and a little bit on his hooves. And I'm just going to go once more, because I have one or two little edges that I don't think are quite blended, and in fact I might go onto the other end, which is the bullet end, just to kind of like, because can you see there's just one or two little places where it's a little bit sharp and a little bit, I really want to blend it together. Okay. And as I said yesterday, the big thing with an alcohol pen is that actually the alcohol pen takes away, it doesn't add to, so the more you go over it, the more it takes away any colour that was there, and leaves behind this colour. So if this is the very lightest colour, what I'm really doing is taking away some of that darker brown where it was a bit harsh. There we go. I'm liking him better. Now it's up to you. You might want him more grey, you might want him more brown, but I like him like that. And he is to go on my little girl card, so I quite like the fact that he has a bit of a pink hue to it. So I'm now going to just cut this out, and as I said yesterday, I think I made it fairly clear that these are my absolute ultimate favourite things from the catalogue, the snip scissors, because look what I can do. I can go round and in and out, and within that I can just spin it round and carry on, and I don't get nasty edges, and I don't have it tearing at the fabric of the card. A, because it's good quality card, as all our Stampin' Up card is, but B, because it's so narrow, the blade is so narrow that it doesn't tear, and I can just whiz it backwards and forwards and up and down, backwards and forwards. None of this having to sort of come in from another angle. I can just keep changing the angle. And I would say to anybody who's new to cutting that the best thing to do is to cut in one direction. You will notice that I've really not changed the direction that my scissors are. That all the way through this video they've been angled from this side to that side, so at that angle. But what has changed like mad is the card itself. I've moved the card back and forth, okay, and there he is. And I might just go in because I want to be a little bit fussy and just do this in a bit here. And this again, look, you can't do this with many scissors. It needs a really narrow bladed scissor just to get into that little gap. Okay, there we are. Beautiful. So here we go. Here's our card with its greeting, and now all I need to do is sit her on there. And I think she's just turned into a little girl. I thought she was going to be a boy donkey to start with, but I think she's turned into Daisy, not Daniel. Can you hear my little Daisy in the background? It's our little whippet puppy woofing away. Somebody must be coming past. There you go. And because she's now sat on that little edge, she looks like she's supposed to be there. Let's just hold her down for a minute, let the glue stick. And there we go. 2 lovely cards cut out using the snips, but aren't those lovely for a little baby? Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow when I have a Valentine's card.